Good evening. How are you doing? My name is Sarah Otieno. Thank you so much for joining Family TV and Family Radio. On this is the day, again, it's another day that He has made, and we should rejoice and be glad on this day. Use the WhatsApp number 0786 316 316 and talk to us. SMS line 20316 on Facebook and Twitter at Family Radio 316. Well, today we look at some of the stories that are making headline, and we will also be looking at an update when it comes to the United States of America election that has been happening, what is happening right now, and literally the process going forward. Well, right now we get started at the stories locally. Political leaders allied to Deputy President William Ruto have slammed Directorate of Criminal Investigation boss George Kinoti over the revival of the 2007-2008 post-election violence cases. The MPs say that the move by the DCI is likely to open up fresh violence in the Rift Valley, which they say will be blamed on Deputy President William Ruto. Just 3 weeks ago, lawyer Paul Gasheru surrendered to the ICC in what others claim is an attempt to revive the crimes against humanity charges against Deputy President William Ruto. Kinoti, after meeting victims who had flocked the DCI headquarters to record statements, said that 72 murder cases, 44 land displacement cases, and 118 of threats linked to the 2007-2008 post-election violence had been logged.
Yesterday's public statement by Director of Criminal Investigations George Kinoti is yet another installment of the Zilla's antics, staged purely for cheap publicity to anchor partisan political narratives and fuel divisive agendas.
We did indicate that there were plans by state organs and certain people within the state, one, to instigate ethnic animosity and ethnic violence, beginning with the Rift Valley and specifically in Njoro. And we indicated that there were plans to recruit people to go and instigate that violence.
We cannot afford to reopen the wounds that have already healed, because most of the post-election violence victims were maimed and are members of my club. And just as what happened in South Africa after apartheid, there was peace and reconciliation, and they decided to move on as a united country.
Kuna ripoti katika hii nyumba ambayo tunajadiliana, ambayo ililetwa na rais wakati wa State of the Nation address, the security report on security, na akasema katika hiyo ripoti ya kwamba kuna wanasiasa wana fund vigilante groups kama Mungiki na zingineo. Pia hiyo ni kazi bwana Kinoti, angalia kwa hiyo ripoti, kwa sababu kusema kuna wanasiasa haujasema ni nani, ni kucheza na usalama wa kitaifa.
The real President Uhuru Kenyatta should come out. Are you the one who told the ICC you've sorted these issues, or you are the one now who is reopening these issues? And even then, we have agreed as leaders kutoka Rift Valley. Hata liwe liwalo, juu chini, siasa iende nyuma ama mbele, Jubilee ikue isikue, tumeamua ya kwamba hakuna tena mwananchi atamwaka damu kwa sababu ya siasa. That is our resolve. It will not change.
Well, meanwhile, a section of the victims of the post-election violence are still demanding for compensation.
I am the president of the IDPs in the country. Na siku ya jana kuna mambo ambayo ilitendeka Nairobi na nilikuwa huko. Na ile kitu kininishtua ni kwamba yale maneno ambayo iliongewa na Mheshimiwa Kinoti ambaye tunampenda sana haipelekani na yale mambo iko duniani katika nchi yetu ya Kenya.
Sisi ni waadhiriwa, tulichomewa. Kuna watu walipoteza watoto, hata mimi nilipoteza kijana yangu. Lakini tukiambiwa na Kinoti sasa tuende tuandikishe statement sababu anataka kutulipa, hiyo ni kazi rahisi sana na tutafanya. Lakini kuenda kuambia watu ati atakuja na anajua wale watu waliuana na anajua watu wale walichoma, hiyo hangesema namna hiyo.
Na tunataka hawa wenye walienda kuandikisha statement ati wamenyaganywa mashamba na mashamba yao imekaliwa na watu wengine au na kabila ingine, hiyo ni kitu ya muhimu sana. Hata sisi tungetaka kujua ni kina nani tukae na hawa na watu ya media, tuulizane maswali na hawa, mashamba yao iko wapi, iko wodi gani, ni namba ngapi, ni title deed namba ngapi, ndio tujue hata tunaweza kusaidia hawa kuliko vile wanaenda kusaidiwa huko.
Well, there we have it, and that is where we're getting our question of the day. The DCI, Mr. George Kinoti, said that it's high time he relooks into the cases of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. Well, I want to hear from you. Do you think it's right for him to relook into these cases? Because we've had people complain that it will only open up wounds that are starting to heal. So many lives were lost, you know. People lost their jobs. Others were hurt in ways that cannot be mended or just relooked into. Do you think it's right for the DCI boss to actually reopen these cases of the 2007-2008 post-election violence? 0786-316-316. That is the WhatsApp number that you use to talk to me. SMS line 20316, and we'll be looking at some of the opinions and also the responses that we get from you. Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission today released the BBI signature collection format. In a letter to the Building Bridges Initiative Secretariat, IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati said that the Commission has approved the proposed format for collecting of signatures in support of a constitutional amendment. The National Women Steering Committee, on the other hand, has called upon women to reject the BBI report, saying that the report has taken away the gains made by women to access positions of leadership. According to the women leaders, the election of 94 members of the Senate does not guarantee women to be elected, and the women called for the full implementation of the 2010 Constitution before any changes are made to it.
It is regrettable that the President Uhuru Kenyatta has led from the front in ensuring the continued marginalization and exclusion of women in all his appointments to the cabinet, civil service, parastatals, and diplomatic corps, all which do not meet the two-thirds gender principle.
So we said that we were willing to mobilize against any proposed constitutional amendment, and I think we came out very strong on that what we needed was full implementation of the Constitution and not amendments to serve certain political interests.
So we are therefore calling on all women across the country to rise up and defend their constitutional rights or risk losing all their celebrated gains. All Kenyan women must reject the BBI because, among other things, the BBI, firstly, proposes to entrench exclusion by removing all nomination seats at the national and county levels, leaving out women with disabilities, youth, and other marginalized groups.
Oh, well, there we have it. And November has actually been noted as one of the months with the highest number of COVID-19 cases and also deaths that have been recorded because of this pandemic that has not only affected our country, but also different countries across the globe. And today we have 17 more patients that have succumbed to the virus, and we have recorded 727 new cases of COVID-19, and that raises the country's total to 78,512, and this is according to the Health CAS Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, who confirmed today. Well, this was from a sample size of 4,913 that were tested in the last 24 hours and recording a positivity rate of 14.7%. Now, from the cases, 705 are Kenyans, while 22 are foreigners. And speaking during the daily COVID-19 briefing from Afya House, Dr. Mwangangi said that another 806 patients have recovered from the disease, bringing the total number of recoveries in our country to 52,709.
We have 727 people who've tested positive for the virus from a sample size of 4,913 tested within the last 24 hours. This therefore brings our total count in the country to 78,512. From these cases, 705 are Kenyans, while 22 are foreigners. 458 are males, whereas 269 are females. The youngest is a 4-month-old infant, while the oldest is 88 years old. On a positive note, 806 patients have recovered from the disease, 701 from the home-based care program, while 105 have been discharged from various hospitals. And so total recoveries stand at 52,709. And we continue to thank our healthcare workers for their continued dedication to duty that has enabled us to achieve these results. And sadly, we have lost another 17 patients to this disease, bringing the fatality to 1,409. Our sincere condolences to families and friends of those who have lost their loved ones.
Well, there we have it. Now, with the country still staring at a health crisis following the death of at least 40 doctors and hundreds of others who are in the healthcare industry having contracted the disease, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Pharmacists and Dentists Union have vowed that its members will down their tools on the 7th of December this year. Now, the doctors have accused the government of neglecting them and subjecting them to poor working conditions without adequate personal protective equipment and other necessary covers.
As we speak, many counties do not even have oxygen, which the patients who have COVID can access. As we speak, we do not have capacity in our hospitals to isolate our healthcare workers who have contracted COVID in the line of duty. And let me be clear. All our healthcare workers in Kenya, doctors included, they spend almost 90% of their time in the health facilities. And this narrative being created that doctors could be acquiring COVID-19 from other places, that is pure propaganda and lies. Doctors spend their time in the hospitals, treating patients and taking care of Kenyans.
And to the CS Health, this narrative that doctors are getting COVID out of hospitals must stop. In fact, we will refer them to the Occupational Safety Health Act. That is why we have that act in such circumstances. Because doctors spend up to 12 and 19 hours in hospitals serving Kenyans. So you cannot come and insult us and tell us that doctors are getting COVID in bars. That is an insult to the profession and we will not take it lightly.
So far, there is nothing. We have not had any meaningful engagement and commitment from the government of the day. And therefore, we are here to state categorically that the strike will officially begin on 7th of December 2020.
All right, there we have it. And having lost about 40 doctors to COVID-19, this is actually a very high number. Well, back to the question that we are asking today, do you think it's right for the DCI to actually reopen and relook into cases of the 2007-2008 post-election violence? And we have this is my friend Godfrey from Tamu in Muhoroni, and he's saying justice is justice even 30 years late. So it is right as long as justice for those affected is gotten. Thank you so much for that. Joanne from Jerusalem is saying, good evening, Sarah. Kindly share with me. All right, I'll get back to you, Joanne, in a couple of minutes. Joseph from Kiserian, you're saying, praise God, it's raining big cats and dogs here. On today's topic, I believe that it's okay for the DCI to look into the cases. Some of the families never got their rightful compensation. It is for that reason that it's important for the investigations to be done. Thank you so much, and even Faith, for tuning into the show today. Well, I'm waiting for your response on the question that we are asking today about the reopening and the relooking into the cases of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. Do you think it's right and fair for the DCI to actually relook into these cases? Now, the Anti-Corruption Court will on Friday rule on whether digital strategist Dennis Itumbi will be allowed to prosecute Interior CS Fred Matiang'i over the Ruaraka land scandal. Itumbi, who today appeared before Magistrate Douglas Ogoti, said he has met the threshold required to institute private proceedings, and at the same time, Ogoti declined to hear submissions by the office of the DPP because Itumbi's applications were filed as ex parte.
Now, Mr. Itumbi, I don't want to confuse you so much. This is you want the respondents to be charged for an offense.
Yes, Your Honor.
Under SECA, I've seen 3 counts under SECA and 1 count under the Penal Code. Just to assist you again, because in case it reaches the place of serving summons, you've got to demonstrate to this court that you have sufficient evidence. And in proving offenses, you need witness statements.
Yes, Your Honor. Right to see, Your Honor, I obtained the documents from public offices, subjects.
Obtained the documents?
From public offices.
Public offices?
Subject to Article 35 of the Constitution on access to information.
Article
35 on access to information.
On
access to information.
To information. Just make things easy. Where is that request? For information, Article 35. Where is the request?
Your Honor, as I said, I assessed that.
Where is the request? You know, we are dealing with the legal issues. Hakuna mambo ya facts hapa. Legal threshold.
Well, there we have it. That is what is happening concerning the scandal of the Ruaraka land that is being followed up by Mr. Dennis Itumbi. Now, PSVs have been arrested at the Webuye Malaba Highway for flaunting the COVID-19 rules. And this is happening even as different members of the public service vehicles are actually complaining that the government needs to relook into the issues and the guidelines that they have been subjected into by carrying a capacity of only up to 60% right now as the country is battling a second wave of COVID-19. Now, most of these PSVs are not observing the COVID-19 rules, but this time they were met by the force of the law.
Kuwashika kwa sababu they are floating, hawazingatii masharti yale yaliweka ya COVID-19. Wengine wanabeba kiholela, wanajaza magari, hakuna sanitizer, hakuna ile social distancing kwa hiyo magari. So ndio hiyo msako tunaendelea nao na tumeshika kadhaa na tunawafikisha kotini hii leo hii asubuhi. Unapoabiri gari hakikisha kwamba kuna space ya kutosha. Usije ukarundikwa kama magunia ya viazi katika hiyo gari. Kwa sababu hii ni kwa usalama wako wewe mwenyewe, kwa afya yako wewe mwenyewe. Usiabiri gari ambayo limejaa. Na wale wanaoperate hizi magari pia nao wazingatie hizi COVID protocols. Hiyo distancing, sanitizer lazima wazingatie na kuvaa barakoa.
Well, there we have it, and it's not only happening in Webuye Malaba Highway, but also across the country, where officers of the law are trying very hard to make sure that rules and the protocols of the COVID-19 regulations are being observed. This is Rogers Orengo, and you're saying, I'm blessed indeed with this constant reminder of the true nature of God's word. You are building my faith stronger. Well, thank you so much, Rogers, for tuning in to Family Media. We really appreciate that. Now let's head over to Kilifi County, where all public service vehicles in that county will, in the next few days, be required to obtain new COVID-19 compliance certificates to be allowed to operate. Kilifi County Commissioner Mr. Kutsa Olaka directed that all the 9 deputy county commissioners in the area to issue the certificates only to PSVs whose owners and operators operators observe the COVID-19 protocol. Now, Mr. Olaka said that the county COVID-19 response committee had agreed with the National Transport and Safety Authority to withdraw licenses from public service vehicles not following the protocols and guidelines that were meant to stem the spread of the deadly virus. The county, which is one of the most affected by the virus, now stares at another lockdown, with Mr. Olaka saying that all options are on the table.
Tunataka kuanzia wiki ijayo kila deputy county commissioner na kamati yake wapeane certificate mpya kwa zile matatu ambazo zinazingatia hizo rules. Kama kuna matatu ambayo itakuwa inazingatia, zitanyang'anywa leseni, na hiyo tumekubaliana na NTSA. Jana tulikutana na kamati ya interfaith ya county na tukakubaliana ya kwamba mahali popote ya kuabudu watahakikisha ya kwamba zile protocols ambazo ziko kwa interfaith zinafuatwa kikamilifu, na wamekubali kusaidiana na sisi kama viongozi wa kidini kuhakikisha ya kwamba hiyo shida ya kukongamana katika mahali ya kuabudu inazingatiwa vilivyo. Ingine ni kwamba hizi tournaments za mipira ni mojawapo ya njia ya kueneza ugonjwa wa COVID-19, na tumekuwa na mazungumzo na viongozi wa kuchaguliwa na kisiasa ili tusimamishe hizo tournaments mpaka Januari, tuone kama tunaweza kupunguza maambukizi ya COVID-19.
All right, noting that Kilifi is one of the counties that has been greatly affected with the COVID-19 virus, these new regulations and measures have been put in place to actually curb the spread of the virus in that county. Now, on the question of the day, Timur Uba, you're saying if one wasn't affected, he or she can easily open the files. For me, it's so unfortunate to the families who are affected and even losing their loved ones once. I don't advocate for the reopening of these cases of 2007-2008 post-election violence. Thank you so much, Timur Uba, for that response. I have someone else here who is saying, my name is Days. Thank you so much for the update that you're giving on the question of the day. I don't think it's right to reopen the cases because, as you said, it's opening up wounds that are already starting to heal. Thank you so much, Days, for that response and for contributing to the topic of discussion. Send in your responses on the same topic. Lynette from Nairobi is saying Christmas songs. Oh yes, we are now entering the Christmas season and you will be hearing a couple of those right here on Family TV and Family Radio. Now let's look at some international stories, and many talents across the world are yet to be discovered. It only takes opportunity for one to actually be discovered with what they do or the information that they have. In Ghana, the only car maker in Kantacta, which is owned by one Mr. Erastus Dr. Apostle Kwadwo Safo, but an 18-year-old Ghanaian Kevin Odeiti at his age manufactured his own car through scrap metal. He drove the car to write his final high school examination, noting that he was helped and financed by his friends. Now, he says he has been living with his mom after his father passed away, and he maintained that during growing up, whenever he saw a car, he heard a voice telling him that he can create one on himself. Well, if you look at that video, it's actually his schoolmates celebrating what this young boy, 18-year-old man, Kevin, actually achieved by creating his own car out of scrap metal. That is really encouraging. Now, the General Service Administration has ascertained that President-elect Joe Biden is the apparent winner of the November 3rd general election. President Donald Trump, who had refused to concede the election, says that he is directing his team to cooperate on the transition, but is vowing to keep up the fight. The move clears the way for the start of the transition of Trump's administration and allows Biden to coordinate with the federal agencies on plans of taking over on January 20th. And in the United States, a transition is the process during which the president-elect prepares to take control of the administration, which involves
the inauguration is called the transition. The new president assembles an administration and prepares to start running the federal government. The job is run by a transition team, separate from the campaign, with its own staff and budget. The transition team develops goals and strategies for the early days of the new administration. Here's what is to be decided: how to turn campaign promises into policy, what to do first and what to do later, and whether to roll back actions of the previous president. The federal government provides office space and financial resources needed to do the work. It also does background checks for security clearances. Private donors are allowed to contribute to the transition, up to a limit of $5,000 per person. Rapidly decided elections give the transition team about 11 weeks, but the contested 2000 election ended with only 39 days remaining. Ready or not, a president will be sworn in at noon on January 20th. With a smooth transition, the new president can have a team in place ready to work on a new agenda.
Well, I don't think anyone needs to be told that Mr. Trump is about to concede with the way things are going. Anyway, let's wait and see. Kenny from Maringo, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Now, China hails at a successful moment its pre-dawn launch of a robotic spacecraft to bring back rocks from the moon in the first bid by any country to retrieve lunar surface samples since the 1970s, and a mission underscoring Chinese ambitions that are in space. The long March 5, China's largest carrier rocket, blasted off at 4 a.m. Beijing time.
China on Tuesday launched an unmanned spacecraft to a previously untouched part of the moon to bring lunar rocks back to Earth. The mission of the Chang'e 5 probe, named after the ancient Chinese goddess of the moon, is to collect 4.5 pounds of samples to help scientists understand more about the moon's origins and formation. If successful, it would make China only the third country to have retrieved lunar samples after the US and the Soviet Union. In one lunar day, or about 2 weeks here on Earth, China will try to collect the material from an unvisited area in a massive lava plain on the moon. The samples will then be transferred to a return capsule and sent back to Earth. It's a test for China ahead of more complex missions. Within the next decade, China plans to establish a robotic base station to conduct unmanned exploration in the south polar region of the moon. And it plans to retrieve samples from Mars by 2030. China's current mission comes as NASA is planning to send robotic rovers to the moon before an eventual human landing for the first time since 1972.
Beautiful, just beautiful.
Well, finally this evening, how far would you go to study the characteristics or the response of creatures like monkeys? Well, here's a story of one British pianist by the name Paul Barton, who played piano classics while being mobbed by monkeys while on a tour to central Thailand. Barton hoped his music would calm down the monkeys amid a time in which tourists are unable to feed them thanks to the coronavirus pandemic. The musician hoped to raise awareness of the creatures' hunger while also studying their response to classical music. And Barton has also performed for elephants at retirement sanctuaries. But from the videos that we are seeing, just seeing what is happening, this pianist continuing to play his music even as the monkeys are all over his face and all over his head, and he is not giving up, you know, and doing all this for the sake of knowing their reaction. And these are hungry creatures, because thanks to COVID again, they have not been fed by the tourists for quite some time now. And also remembering that tourist issues have been affected with the pandemic, and having this guy just being persistent to know how they react with all this disturbance in the air. Wow. It calls for a lot of patience and perseverance. Well, that is one British pianist, Mr. Paul Button, doing that, and it's not the first time he's done it. He's also performed to elephants just to see how they react to music. And we are yet to see where that discovery is leading our country. This is someone who's responded to the topic of discussion. It is saying, I don't know what the government was doing for the past 13 years. I think it's not healthy to rekindle the healing wounds. I thought the post-election victims got their justice. Oh yes, some of them have not gotten their justice, and they're still asking for compensation, and that is what led to the reopening and the relooking into cases of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. Well, thank you so much for contributing into the show today. And remember, Prayer Circle is coming in next with Pastor Benjamin Waka. So send in your prayer requests and also your praise reports using the WhatsApp number 0786 316 316, SMS line 20316. Also tomorrow morning we will be having Devotion Hour and Jam 316 with Pastor James Okumu, and after that on Family Radio we'll be having Wilfred Njeru with a celebration of music. You do not want to miss out on these shows and actually get to catch up with some of the new music that we have on board, and also some Christmas carols. And I wish you a good night. My name is Sarah Otieno.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.